the way the rules are set up, the way regulation works that I've learned over time is it's not black and white. There's a whole lot of gray to it. The more sophisticated the trader, the more professional a trader becomes, the more they should educate themselves about the rules, and especially as account size grows.
Hello, everybody. This is Anthony for Investors Underground. In this episode, I have the privilege to speak with a pioneer within the trading community, whose contributions have been pivotal in helping shape the paths of both developing and elite traders. He's served as a principal at 3 distinguished trading firms, most recently as a founder and principal at CenterPoint Securities by Clear Street, a firm renowned for its commitment to providing exceptional service for active traders. He also serves as vice president and director at Traders for a Cause, highlighting his dedication to leveraging trading for philanthropy. It's my pleasure to introduce Mr. Matt Marino. Hello, Matt. Thank you for being here and taking the time to speak with me today.
Hello, Anthony. Gracious introduction. I appreciate that. And it's an honor for me to speak to you and the IU community. I think it's been a wonderful community in the trading world for a long time.
Thank you so much. And I think whether or not people are aware of it, you had at least some influence, we could say, in helping shape at least the ecosystem and environment that allows them to thrive and other developing traders as well. So it's an absolute pleasure to get to speak with you and discuss some of those topics.
Well, that's high praise. I think everything is timing, and myself and CenterPoint had excellent timing in the history of trading and active trading and social media as well. So I'm not sure how much personally I did. I'll take it, but I do attribute it more to the overall environment that we all came into this profession. The timing was amazing and created the community that we have today, IU included.
How did you come into the industry? What's your background? What was your upbringing like? Did you come from a legacy of active traders, or did you enter the industry sort of unbeknownst to yourself even that you'd end up as a broker?
The latter. Absolutely no influence in the markets whatsoever from my upbringing, family or friends. No one I knew was involved. Quick backstory. So I was born in Michigan. I moved to California as a young man, was raised there, met who would become my wife in California. She was a Midwest person. So around 2000, actually, the end of 99, we moved back to Michigan, and I had a cousin running a small brokerage firm, and part of that firm was catering to online trading. And this was in 99. So absolute beginnings of this industry. I joined him. I literally filing papers in the evening just for some extra money. They had an opening as they were expanding, and I joined that team. It was called the Trade Pros. For anyone old enough, we were a branch of Terra Nova, who was a pioneer at the time in online trading. Discount trades were $19.99 a ticket, and that was super cheap at the time. So that was my upbringing, and then from there I got all my licenses and dove head first.
Was this new to you, the idea of maybe starting a firm or joining a firm? What were your thoughts about joining sort of a finance-related industry? Was that new to you as well?
100% new, zero background. I had 2 goals that I shared with my wife. One was to work in the stock market. Some people are blessed with a passion to want to be something, to want to do something. And I think that's amazing for those individuals. I didn't have that, but I realized I was a hard worker. So if I'm going to working around money, since that's kind of the end result of it, would be in the financial world. So that was one loose driving force for me. and I always wanted to work for myself in some fashion. On top of that, I've always been on a team player. I've always been in team sports for the most part, and I enjoy that group, right? That the energy that comes from working with others. And so those are the things that kind of pushed me in the direction that where I ended up. So it was great fortune to end up on a good team initially out of the gate with family as well as great people, and then branched from that initial experience in 99. In 2005, a partner I had met at that initial firm and I started our own, and that's where I started working for myself. And that's the origin story. So I had nothing formal, everything kind of dream, but I kept pushing that direction, and then this is where I'm at.
And was there anything that surprised you about the market or even being in finance? Was it what you thought it might be, or was there anything that surprised you about it?
I never understood, or I didn't understand, obviously, because I had no background in it, the emotion that money can bring to people, especially in active trading. That was, something I learned and adapted to. But it's a powerful thing, and every trader out there has to deal with that. That was surprising, just the true impact of that. Other than that, something that we all deal with on the broker side is regulation and rules. And those are what surprised me, is the way the rules are set up, the way regulation works, that I've learned over time, is it's not black and white. There's a whole lot of gray to it. And all of it is designed to give individual investors and traders a fair shake in the industry as best you can. But just the overwhelming amount of boxes you do have to check in order to be in this business, it still surprises me today.
What does it take to become a broker? Is it a matter of having sufficient capital and that's sufficient? Or, like you mentioned, regulations and maybe qualifications, tests, and things like that you have to both satisfy? What does it take to become a broker, just first and foremost?
Well, to become an individual broker, it is tests, right? That you have to pass exams and have licenses, and every year there is continuing education that you have to go through. To become a brokerage or a brokerage firm, that's where the capital comes in. That's where the team comes in to be able to navigate, all of the boxes that need to be checked in order to become a brokerage firm. It is a lot of work. It is not for the faint of heart. Anyone who tries to do it without all of their due diligence, I don't think is going to succeed. And that's just on the regulatory side and in the business aspects of becoming a brokerage.
Was it as difficult as one might think it is? Is it more difficult? And, how much time do you have to spend on a daily basis sort of satisfying some of those regulatory aspects of being a broker?
The initial exams are where the heavy lift is. And they're big. They are cumbersome. Today, within the past 5 years or so, they actually broke the exam into two pieces for people. When I took it, it was one 4 to 6 hour exam with 250 questions, and it was a lot of information to pack in, especially coming from zero finance background, personally speaking. At this point, it is an annual continuing education, which takes a few hours to complete once a year, but it's not as difficult now. At this point, it's just running the business and making sure you're doing everything you have to from a compliance perspective.
Speaking of running the business, what does the day-to-day sort of routine, if there even is one, look like for you? What is a broker doing, or a brokerage house doing in a firm day to day, or at least for you? What does your day to day look like?
I mean, my day to day has changed over the years, obviously, but there's so many different levels to the business. For me right now, as the head of CenterPoint, it's more meetings than I'm used to, which I used to, as a younger man, you don't understand how meetings apply to the day to day operation. As you get seasoned as I am now, you learn what those are needed for, and those are a bit of a bigger picture, more of the operational aspect behind the scenes, and that's where having an amazing team to continue on the front lines talking to clients all the time is why that's so important. Is we started CenterPoint, going to CenterPoint as a small team who did everything out of the gates, and now we have a great team to fill all the blanks that are needed.
Matt, you've been a principal at a few brokers. What is the job of the principal, and how has that changed in the past few years?
The job of a principal is basically to accept responsibility for everything that happens within a brokerage firm. Different aspects of the business fall to different principals, and the ones that you're covering as a principal, it's your responsibility. So if something goes wrong and any regulator has questions, you're going to be the one who has to answer those. I don't think it's changed very much. That's always been the intent. That's always been the result of being a principal.
How much contact do you have, or does, more generally speaking, does a principal have with regulators? Are these sort of connections that you might have to speak with, maybe once a year, or is it more frequent than that? Because I think maybe there's a perception amongst traders that, regulation kind of doesn't apply, or they just altogether don't know, how much communication there might be between regulators and their brokerage firm.
As a principal, and personally speaking, I've been lucky. I've had very little interaction. That's why every firm has a compliance department. They are the front line of communication with regulators, and that's much more common than any trader would ever realize. That is always happening at different levels, on different scales, different topics. Whether it's a client that may be doing something wrong at a different firm, but has an account with you, and then you have to provide information about what you know about that particular client. But from my perspective, I've been very fortunate. It's not as much contact, but the compliance department is always. And then I speak with the compliance department and answer their questions that they then provide up to the regulator. That's the way the flow works.
And how important is it to both satisfy those regulatory requirements, but also maintain trust within the clients who might be subject of, some sort of request received? How do you balance that all? Because you have sort of these laws you have to maintain compliance with, but also you don't want to be known as the firm that's just, constantly not providing trust or backing their clients. I could see that as sort of a major responsibility on your end, and as a broker in a brokerage firm.
It is the approach that myself and all the teams I've ever been a part of that have surrounded me has always been to provide the traders with as much knowledge as they want to accept, and provide the regulators with as much information as they require, right? So there are times where we see activity where we have to preemptively provide something, and what traders don't realize is how monitored everything is. From trading, at every trade that's placed, 99% of traders are doing fine, but there are a percent of traders who find an edge, whether they realize it or not, that is brushing up against something the regulators don't like. And, there's questions we have to answer sometimes and then we relay to a client the best we can in the appropriate way that, we might have to ask questions. Why are you pursuing that trading strategy? What is your intent? And a lot of times traders have no idea that they may be doing anything that someone doesn't like, but every single trade is monitored and there are systems that catch it. So it's an interesting behind the scenes. It's a great question you ask because, again, traders don't know. And I've shared this before, but the more sophisticated the trader, the more professional a trader becomes, the more they should educate themselves about the rules, and especially as account size grows. You start butting up into 7-figure accounts, and now you're a professional, and you need to treat it as such. And you are working within an industry that is heavily regulated. And the better you understand those rules, the better you navigate them, and the more success that you're likely to have by working within the parameters that exist within this industry.
Have you noticed at all maybe that as a trader becomes more successful, they get in touch more with their broker, or there's more of a relationship with their broker, whether it's because of these regulatory reasons or otherwise, just because, they're more comfortable with their broker and trading there? Does that relationship begin to grow? And is that a relationship that you think traders should, either welcome or continue to cultivate with their broker?
Yes. And the way I would answer that is the more, well, there's two parts actually that I'll put out there. The more money a trader has, typically, and the more risk they assume, the more communication that's needed at times of peril. If you're in a trade and it's not going the way you want to, the best way for you to manage that trade is to communicate with us. What do you intend to do at this position, right? Or are there outside funds you want to bring in to maintain this position? And if those are in the plans, heavy communication is the best way. It's the only way for us to know what your intent is. Otherwise, we're just looking at risk. On the other side of the coin, or a little more of a broader answer to that question is, as traders become really good at what they do, right? They really hone in on their own style of trading, whatever that is. Even if it's shorting, every trader handles their business differently. There are no identical traders. I've seen thousands of traders and no two are the same. You just can't be. It's all between the ears. So everyone's different. But as they get really good at what they do, a lot of times they want to then expand within this industry. And there's so many different ways that you can actually, make money as a trader, as an investor. There are IPO business, the calendar business. IPOs are secondaries. And when traders start, or a private placement, or there's so many different ways to skin this cat. And as traders become more successful and they start broadening out, they reach out to us because they need that leader, that not leadership, but guidance from us. And that's our job to kind of educate them and help them expand their toolbox. So that's where the relationship really gets next level and gets built on.
Yeah, I know I've seen, at least in 2024, some of the traders that are known for their equities and trading just stocks have begun to broaden their horizons and are now trading more options and, looking for other ways to express their trade ideas. And so I think that sort of, is an example of what you're speaking to, which is all these different ways to make money and skin the cat, as it were.
Right.
And one of the things that you mentioned was risk. Maybe a trader, as their account is growing, they're assuming more risk in each of their trades. But I wanted to ask whether, as the trader is assuming more risk to their account, does that, as a byproduct, sort of increase your risk as a broker and a firm?
Certainly. every trader is managing one account typically, right? I mean, sometimes they have multiple accounts, but they're managing their money and their risk. And yes, we have our whole business is built on margin accounts, which is a loan, which increases risk. And we have hundreds of accounts every day trading on borrowed money from us. So yes, the risk is exponential, especially when you have, when you have a lot of traders who are in the same trade. And, the easy examples are just a short that doesn't come down and it gets squeezed, and everyone's been there. We have traders, they're looking at their one screen and we're looking at dozens. So yes, the risk is it's the biggest part of our job. Honestly, it's risk management, just like a trader. That's the number one job, in my opinion, of the broker in this particular industry, especially.
Can you talk a little bit about those instances, especially for those who trade small cap stocks and they're interested in shorting? They might be shorting the front side of a much larger move that goes, parabolic on them. I'm sure there's conversations that have to happen, at the broker side, about whether or not, there's going to be a potential for maybe a forced liquidation or a margin call. Can you maybe explain some of those differences in how, as a broker, on the business side and maybe even the regulatory side, you have to handle those tough situations?
Yeah. Margin calls are typically an overnight event. Just to check that off, an intraday call, typically there's no time to formally issue a call. If it is a parabolic event and the trader gets in and it times it wrong, right? I mean, trading is all timing. You can be right and wrong. Your thesis can be right. The stock will come down, but you got in wrong. The forced liquidation is absolutely the worst event for a broker. It is the last thing that we ever want to do. Our job initially is to give the tools to the trader to manage their own money. And with that, with the trader, they need to take the responsibility to do that. And there are times where they're going to have to take a loss that could be devastating. And that goes back to what we talked about at the very beginning, the emotion of money. Now, we obviously do have to force liquidations at times when your money is running out and now you're still leveraged so far and you're going to dip into our money. That's the risk we have to manage. So forced liquidations happen. That also goes back to the communication. If you're a trader and you have money elsewhere and you want to wire it in immediately, we need proof of that wire to be able to accept it. Otherwise, we can't accept that responsibility. And nor would I ask anyone else to do the same. But it is an emotional time, and it's a powerful emotion, and it's no fun for anybody. It's the worst thing we have to do. It's the worst thing for traders. And oftentimes the timing is horrible because it happens during a squeeze right before it turns around. But we're not here to predict that. We're here to manage risk, and that's how we have to approach it. Most traders are respectful of that, and I've always appreciated that level of professionalism. I say most because some have a harder time.
Whether you're interested in testing out some proprietary new trading scanners or surrounding yourself with successful trading veterans, Investors Underground has something to offer traders at all skill levels. You'll have access to courses and mentors to learn from, some of the best technology available for scanning stocks and breaking news, and access to the chat rooms, where you'll find a vibrant community of focused traders who share their trade ideas in real time each day. You'll also have access to the morning broadcast, where Nate and the IU moderators share their trade ideas for the day ahead during the pre-market session. You'll have access to the midday study sessions with Stan, the midweek study sessions with Sam, webinars, moderator watch lists, and all the other resources that Investors Underground has to offer. Listeners of the podcast can access special deals at investorsunderground.com/YouTube. And Investors Underground members who are interested in opening up an account with CenterPoint have access to special deals that are available at investorsunderground.com/CP.
The perspective, especially a new trader needs to grasp, in my opinion, is margin it obviously cuts both ways. That leverage is what can enable a trader managing things well to make much more money than they could if they were just trading a cash account. And we don't take any of those profits, right? That's none of ours. But on the flip side, it exasperates a bad trade. And we do have to manage that portion of it, in a very sharp manner. And at times it can seem callous. And it's, again, that's what makes it no fun. We're people too. The whole goal of this industry, of this business, and especially, personally, and the team that I'm surrounded with, is you want a win-win scenario. You want traders who accept the responsibility and put in the hard work. This is an industry that, when I started, it was much more because, again, it was early days of trading, and a lot of people, and it was the early days of quote unquote day trading, right? That was the 2000s or 2000 when the tech bubble burst, and a lot of people considered trading gambling. And I 100% disagree. It is a industry that is led by individuals who put in hard work, a lot of time and effort to learn how to find an edge. But they have to accept the responsibility of, how that cuts both ways in regards to margin in that loan.
What type of fulfillment do you get out of being a broker? What does it satisfy for you? Is it an intellectual curiosity, or is it something more? What drives you to continue to do this work as a broker?
Great question. For me, I have always enjoyed providing, in a nutshell, good service. It's a relationship business is best you can. And these relationships are interesting because it's faceless for the most part, right? It's emails, sometimes phone calls, sometimes chats, but it's very faceless, but it's still relationships that you build over time. And giving these tools out to individuals, giving as best a service as we can. And that is working with clients to solve issues, whether it's a software issue, or they're trying to move money, or they're still learning to trade. And, we give no trading advice, but we give a lot of advice on not a lot, but we give advice on how to approach the business. I can share with people what I've learned watching other traders. And the fulfillment for me is developing those relationships and, hopefully watching people be successful at this. And back to the liquidations and things like that, it is hard for us to watch people lose their money because of those relationships. So if someone does have a blow up, it certainly affects everyone on this side of the desk as well. Even though it seems like we're just the faceless broker, we're people too, and that it's hard to watch. And and then on the flip side, it's thrilling to watch success. So it's all about developing those relationships inside, with clients and even with the team, right? It's all, again, for me personally, life is just relationships, whether it's family, friends, work, clients, anything, people you just walk past on the street. A relationship can last 1 second if you just give a nod and a smile, but it's still, that's having that type of interaction. And, maybe I'll skip ahead, but that's where Traders for Cause and that annual event in person really really is a catalyst for building on those types of relationships and increasing the fulfillment, not just from the charity perspective, that of course, but from the relationship perspective.
Absolutely, yeah. And Traders for a Cause is one of the topics we certainly have to touch on as we speak today. And one of the things I wanted to ask, since you touched on something else there, was about relationships. And I know CenterPoint Securities does a lot to really make their clients feel like individuals rather than just account numbers. I've had personally, accounts with some of the larger, box brokers out there, and definitely just feel like an account number in the past. And CenterPoint, I've had emails from you before, just really quick. I have a question. I get an email back from you at CenterPoint, and that always stood out to me. And so, how do you manage to, maintain such good relationships with your clients at CenterPoint? And was that one of the goals, at the ground level when CenterPoint was just forming? Was that something that you wanted to establish, sort of that culture within CenterPoint?
1,000%. The cornerstone of CenterPoint as we started, what we would say is we wanted to provide institutional level of service and tools to the individual trader. That was our how we started, our mantra. Part of that is institutional clients have relationships with their brokers. It's high touch. And we have applied that as best we can to hundreds and hundreds of traders over the years. We have grown, and we're very selective on the people we bring into our team because they have to be a part of that as well. It's an extension of the founding principles because that is so important to us and maintains. And, the goal is to continue to grow CenterPoint, specifically under the Clear Street umbrella that now gives us much more resource, but to scale it in a way that we can maintain that type of service for the active trader. So that is definitely was a cornerstone of where we started and where we still are. This past year, we did an end of year survey, for example, and the results, we had over 300 people respond to a survey. And thank you to anyone who is listening and did that, because that alone, I don't respond to surveys, personally speaking, not very often. So we appreciate that that says something right there. But the overwhelming positivity that came from it, and that we're able to still maintain that level of touch, is that's rewarding.
And I saw some photos online of, a few select clients of CenterPoint, going out and doing some fishing and, getting to spend some time with them. Can you talk a little bit about, what that has been like to, interact closely with some of those clients and those types of traders?
We recently hosted some clients in St. Thomas, and that was part of a Clear Street product launch, which maybe I can touch on later. But the main point is, over the years, I think what CenterPoint has done a good job at and put effort into, right? Some things in life are luck. And I heard a saying once that luck is the residue of design. And part of our design is to cater to not just the successful trader of today, but to pick out the people that we see that have potential to be the successful trader of tomorrow or next year. And we invite those folks to different events that we've had over the years, and it strengthens that relationship, and it helps, I think, give a trader confidence in what they're doing, because trading is such a hard thing. It's such a mental exercise, and you are lost within your own head, for hours a day. So to have someone from the outside be able to validate the path you're on, I think is a powerful thing for a trader too. And it gives them confidence that they're doing the right things, and let alone just P&L, but just the approach to the business. So that's, again, to go back to your question, we have entertained clients in different forms over the years, and it's both kind of trying to reward and strengthen relationships that have been a win-win in the past, and relationships we think are going to be a win-win going forward.
On that topic of, traders that you see doing incredible things and doing well, that you do validate, do they all have sort of commonalities to them?
Well, always risk management, always a respect for risk management and the ability to apply it. The emotion is running high, so the ability to apply the risk management, and the professionalism, really. I've taken many calls from individuals who lack professionalism and let the emotion overtake them, and it can be very unpleasant, or they treat members of our team unpleasantly. And I always come back to, in trying to de-escalate a heated situation, with let's be professional together. Again, I'm not a faceless broker. I'm a person. The person you spoke to last was a person, as well as you are, and I can understand why you're heated at the time, but we need to come to a professional. So the traders who are successful embrace this as a profession. It's not a hobby. It's not gambling. It is a profession that they are going to put a lot of time, effort, and a lot of times finances, whether it be to, they're paying for tools to help give them an edge. So it's that professional approach that comes through completely, that sets aside a successful trader from one that isn't. And a lot of times, the worst thing we can see, honestly, after over 20 years, the worst thing I can see is a trader coming in and being very successful really fast, because it gives them the wrong idea, and the market will absolutely teach them in a painful way, and because most people then lose that edge of professionalism at that point, because it's a little too fun. So
As CenterPoint continued to grow, you know, how were you able to scale the level of professionalism, in the employees, so that you continue to have that very, personable experience with the traders, and the traders, see you as completely different than other, brokers out there?
great question. We scaled it by working harder, but we were so selective in the people we have kind of brought into our tribe, because it was, and I said it before, but how important it is for us to maintain that level of relationship with clients. So it was working harder as the client base grew, being selective, bringing in people and having them absorb the culture that that exists within CenterPoint. So it's been fast in growth of clients, slow in growth of team, but we've been very, very fortunate that the people that we have brought on have fit so well and have continued with that same culture.
You also have a couple really talented, a few talented individuals. I saw some posts not too long ago about volleyball players at CenterPoint. Could you talk a little bit about them, and that connection between volleyball and CenterPoint by Clear Street?
One of our founding principals, Scott Herman, was a former beach volleyball player, and it's a passion of his. I personally spent more time playing soccer and surfing. He was volleyball. And with that, he to this day, he has a daughter that excels in the sport. So it's very close to him. And it's also a very San Diego, which is has always been CenterPoint's headquarters, um, culture, as far as sporting. So beach volleyball, we currently sponsor 6 different athletes, all on the AVP, Association of Volleyball Professionals. They're beach players. We have 2 players in particular, Miles Partain and Andy Benesh, who are going to be in Paris at the Olympics this summer. And they're the number 1 ranked team in the US, and they're the 4th ranked team in the world right now. And it's been amazing. We've sponsored Miles for, I think, about 3 years. And his quick progression since he was playing at UCLA when we started this sponsorship, and now he's just a complete full-time professional, to watch him grow and to watch CenterPoint be on his uniform. Beach volleyball isn't the biggest sport in the world, but I have, in Michigan, been in a motorsports business before. I have some 4-wheelers, and on the TV sports show is beach volleyball, and I see CenterPoint logos playing, and it's an amazing moment. It was fun to see, and it's thrilling. This summer in particular is very thrilling to watch the success of these individuals go worldwide.
When you think about what a good broker is, what comes to mind?
Respect, and we, part of that relationship is we respect CenterPoint. Our team respects what a trader is trying to do, and recognizes the headwinds that an individual trader comes into. This is it's a lonely sport, and it's a hard one. The odds are stacked against you, but if you put in the right time and effort, you can be successful. So I don't know that, and I and we have never ever talked badly of another broker, because it does no good to anybody. So we just have focused on the respect of what a trader is trying to accomplish. What can we do within our power to help? And that's, I think it comes down to that one word of respect. And then we ask for it back, right? We have a lot of rules, regulations, things we have to follow on our side. So if everyone is respecting each other, that's how we can flourish. And that is for a good broker. I think that's the most important thing.
Well, I think a lot has changed in the past 5 years alone, let alone if you were to go further back in terms of the brokerage business. One thing that comes to mind are commissions. Another thing that comes to mind are locate fees and things like that. Can you talk a little bit about the changes that you've had to navigate and CenterPoint has had to navigate, over the past few years, and trends that you're seeing, and how you're adapting to those and continuing to succeed as a broker?
Great question. The origin of CenterPoint, I'm going to go back a little further real quick, but 2012 is when we started. I had mentioned earlier, we wanted to give institutional level of tools and service. Part of that was the ability to short hard to borrow stocks. That was predominantly an institutional service that was provided. Beyond an easy to borrow list at different broker or different clearing firms, I should say, hard to borrow stocks were very hard for a client, an individual retail trader, to access. We CenterPoint pioneered that ability. Now, in the past, say, 4 years, really, is when competition came in, and there are a lot more brokers offering locates. The pricing has gotten completely put in the trader's favor, which is great. The space is a lot more crowded from a trader perspective and brokerage perspective. And I don't mean to say that in a way that I think the edge is necessarily gone. I've read that, I've seen that. I've, I've heard that conversation from a trader perspective. Is the edge still here because this space is so crowded? It is still an edge. However, you have to execute correctly. But back to the pricing of locates, when we started, because we were at the beginning, we used the pricing of locates as the first step of risk management. If it's a low float, if it is the volatility is through the roof, we wanted it to be expensive. We wanted someone to say, do I really want to pay that much to get into this trade? Because there was times if you didn't have the capital, we didn't really want you in the trade because it's danger. So that was a mechanism that we used. Now with the introduction of a lot more competition, the pricing that we lost our ability to use that approach. And that's fair. That happens. Industries change, times change, and the prices have become compressed. And we made changes ourselves. We got a little behind the eight ball, in all honesty, when competition really first came in and really just lowballed that. We had just come under the Clear Street umbrella. We were building some proprietary platform or software behind the scenes to manage that type of short allocation and risk and everything. So we were late to adjusting, and we paid the price for that for a little bit. In full transparency, we lost some business. We were still too expensive, and I understood that, and we all understood that. And then when we finally got all our ducks in a row and we were able to make our adjustments, it's been very successful since. And we have some amazing momentum right now. And, I'm thrilled with how we made the adjustment. We didn't do it overnight, which wasn't great for some clients. A lot of, obviously a ton of our long-term clients stuck with us because they knew what we were working on. And the reason we took time and effort is all within our walls. It's a long game. We are playing the long game. We don't want to make money today. We want to be in business for years, and we want to be the best at what we're doing for years. So to make pivots in business as you get bigger, obviously things do move a little slower at times, but if you're doing it right, you're doing it with the right intent, it works. And knock on wood, that's what we're doing.
Well, thank you. I appreciate the transparency there. Being able to say that, maybe you could have done things differently. I think that's important to hear because that's sort of the reality, not just in trading, but in business as well. One of the things that sort of I'm thinking about here is like if there's others, competitors who are potentially, competing for the locates to be as cheap as possible, doesn't that inherently sort of bring more potential risk for them if they're offering their clients very low priced locates on a low float stock and sort of increase the possibility that not just the client sort of, loses a lot of money or blows up altogether, but in effect have sort of some negative ramifications on the firm itself and its ability to manage money. It seems like something that, correct me if I'm wrong, but over the long term, maybe 5, 10 years, 15 years of doing that, there can be some real issues for a broker. Is that accurate at all?
The question you're asking is, I will answer as my opinion only, but the answer is yes. And again, lower prices can be seen as good for the trader. I get that. Of course, I understand that. But it also lowers the barrier of entry into a risky world of speculative trading. So I completely agree, in my opinion, that by compressing pricing so low, you have made it so much easier for people to get in without having to think much because the price is so cheap to an arena of battle that is cutthroat and will throw you aside in a second if you're wrong. And anyone can just jump in that arena now. I understand how that can sound. As a broker, we make money off of fees, so you just want more fees. And I, yes, of course, it's a business, right? We're running a business. But if it's not win-win, if a trader can't make money because it's too expensive, that's not a long-term plan either. So there is a medium, but as some firms have come in, offered things so low, and I do think the risk they run, has the potential to bite them at some point. I don't wish bad on anybody. I hope everyone can avoid it. But being in a front seat, watching how this game is played, how this industry evolved or has evolved, and it continues to evolve, yes, the risk is definitely there for firms to take huge hits without much capital reserve because they're giving things away for too cheap at times.
Thank you. I really appreciate it. And I know a lot of traders and those who are listening, might have had questions about locate fees, why they were so high at some points, why there's other competitors who, might have lower locate fees. So I appreciate it very much, Matt. Any information I think for traders out there is valuable information because it's not every day that traders get to, speak with a broker or have this much time to discuss it or have this much transparency. So I really appreciate that on your end.
And to on that front, to elaborate a tad further for traders to understand the industry. Again, this goes back to they should understand the industry a little bit more because this is the profession they're choosing to partake. The locate business is also heavily regulated. There have been rumors floated for years about how this works, but they don't. It is a massive record keeping exercise that has to be done between the broker, the firms they're talking to, where they get supply from different shares of whether it be banks or clearing firms, and it's scrutinized, and it's something we have to answer for. So I also think some of the new brokers are, because we've been doing it so long, we've been through regulatory interaction with this, and we have, in the very beginning, we did some things we shouldn't have done, to be frank. Like we recognized, like, okay, that was a little bit too aggressive. And again, it was trying to give more to the client, and we knew we had to change those things. So it is heavily regulated, everything about it, even though rumor on the street is can be of a different topic, or different different viewpoint, I should say.
Much more people know what trading is now than ever before, almost by an exponential number. And has that caused sort of you to have to rapidly shift maybe policies or way that you do things?
The first part is yes. The industry, I kind of started out by mentioning timing. When CenterPoint started in 2012, it was also at a point where social media was starting, really becoming mainstream, right? There was chats online, like Yahoo Finance had chats 20 years ago, but Twitter, true social media was really starting at that time. So we were fortunate that our firm came on, offered a service that was solid, and social media helped spread the word, and it helped us grow right out of the gate, right? I mean, you can read business, different industry over decades, and timing is always an important aspect of success. Now, where we are today, the traders of today, your 20 to 25-year-olds, they grew up online. They grew up online gaming. They are very comfortable behind a screen, keeping score on a game that moves very fast paced and is very realistic. And they're comfortable in that arena. When I started in 99, I was teaching my clients how to right click because some of them didn't know that, right? Because it was brand new. So this whole new wave of traders are, just on the online is obviously just our life now. So that has catapulted this industry with, I think, the future of traders being comfortable in that type of high stress environment on a keyboard. On top of that, if you look at any of the marketing by the biggest brokers, the big box brokers, like you mentioned earlier, they all market now to the individual managing their own portfolio. That's not always necessarily active trading, but it's the same thing. And, I think our industry is in a very good spot for growth into the future. And I'm excited for some of those people I've mentioned, not by name, that have joined our team that are younger. I mean, I've got some years left in my tank, but I'm not the future, but I'm excited that it's set up well for them to continue forward.
Absolutely. There's a lot of growth happening. I've never seen more people as interested in trading in the stock market as currently. And we're seeing it in popular culture as well. There's been a number of movies that have been made with very well-known actors on the subject of day trading, and it's just kind of incredible to see the growth.
Correct. And obviously the unfortunate pandemic that we all lived through, a point in time we'll never forget, but with government money, with everyone stuck at home, that also was an absolute catapult of interest into the markets. And then, of course, GME just took it to the mainstream news. That momentum does still continue.
Related to CenterPoint, merging with Clear Street, could you talk a little bit about what that has entailed and some of the things that you're excited for in the future with that relationship?
The trading industry, Wall Street, banking, is all built on very antiquated technology. And it's technology that's been around for 30, 40, 50 years that they just put Band-Aid and Band-Aid and Band-Aid and Band-Aid on. The founders of Clear Street said, let's approach this with brand new tech, cloud-based tech, looking forward, so that once we get this nucleus clearing product built, we will be able to then expand into different asset classes, your futures and bonds and whatever the different asset classes that exist, quicker and more efficiently, as well as different regions, different countries, different markets. They started in 18, the founding. They acquired us in 2019. We were obviously a profitable, successful brokerage that they could plug in and test what they had built right away. And again, from a trader's perspective, they don't care. I don't even care, to be frank. As long as the numbers match up at the end of the day, none of us care how it happens. We don't care if it's old tech or new tech. It doesn't affect us. But it is new tech. So CenterPoint has raised capital over the past years. We have investors now, a large valuation. Again, what does that mean for the trader? Not much yet. But what it has done, it has capitalized us to make, within Clear Street, amazing hires last year, high-level Wall Street executives coming in with specific jobs to do. And we are on the cusp of starting to release product to the client that will change things for the clients, that will be important for the clients. And it's very exciting. By the end of this year, we should have some, within the coming months, we're going to have some announcements about product that is going to benefit the trader. And we're going to keep building on that faster now, that like I keep calling it that nucleus technology is mature and ready to go. What it's done for CenterPoint, this acquisition, is capitalized us as well, and has made us, instead of being an introducing broker dealer having to deal with other clearing firms, we've had the ability to help shape what this clearing firm is going to be. Again, it's a long game. Some of it's been painful, it's been frustrating, it's hard, it's not easy work. But looking at the long game, we want to be competitive in a much bigger arena. It's important to our team that we scale and maintain that service. So we continue to bring on team members slowly, but as best we can, to continue to give that, again, that level of high touch. So the acquisition of CenterPoint into ClearStreet has been, like any relationship, tough at times, beautiful at times, but the future is incredibly bright. We're all very excited for what's to come down the road. And again, for me, for the younger leaders of our team, I think it's setting up beautifully, and it excites me.
I'm really excited to see what you have in store, and the future sounds exceptionally bright. And I know also now Canadian traders have the option to trade at CenterPoint as well. Is that accurate?
That is, we actually opened a broker dealer in Canada. It's ClearStreet Canada, but we run it as CenterPoint. So we do have access for Canadian accounts to open up through that, which is amazing. That was a long game, years in the making. Doing it the right way through the all of the regulatory hoops and hurdles, which take time. We are expanding into other markets in the future as well, and the other asset classes. We are building out within ClearStreet a futures division. We have approval from the FCM, and the future's bright there as well. There's some things going on today that I was reading a note earlier this morning about the progression of how we're going to be able to offer all of these things under one roof to our clients and continue to grow. So yeah, it's terribly exciting.
That's great. I'm excited to see all of it. And congratulations again on continuing to grow CenterPoint, and in a way that makes you proud, because I know that can go a number of ways as you grow. So being able to grow it in a way that you're proud of, I think that's really exceptional, and it's inspiring to see.
You are right. It is fun. It makes it fun. I mean, every day has to be fun. Otherwise, work shouldn't just be, even trading, right? It shouldn't just be a job. You shouldn't dread it. You got to have fun. You have to laugh. I try to laugh every day because otherwise it's empty. So with this success, being proud of how we're doing it and the team we're doing it with and the clients that we've grown with. I mean, I'll shamelessly throw Nate in here. He's been with us since the very beginning and been an incredibly loyal person. And a lot of clients like him. They were offered cheaper deals. They could have left. They could have gone anywhere to save a few bucks, and they would have. And they stayed with it. And together we have grown. Again, it's a community that I'm proud of.
Matt, I also wanted to talk a little bit about another kind of community that you're involved in, and that's Traders for a Cause, which just celebrated its 10th year anniversary this past year. And so, I just want to say congratulations. It's one of the more fun conferences that I look forward to every year. And you've been on the board of directors, for at least 5 years now. You serve as, vice president. Can you talk a little bit about what got you interested in Traders for a Cause and what it means for you?
For Traders for a Cause, go back to Nate and Scott, who I mentioned earlier. They were the nucleus of what started Traders for a Cause, but CenterPoint as a team was always a big part of it, even from locking in the website URLs, because there were variations of the name. At one point, we were Traders for a Cure for example, and landed on Traders for a Cause because it was more broad and allowed us to work with whatever type of charitable organizations that can help people in various ways. So when it started, back to Nate, him and his family helped start it by manning the desks and moving boxes and everything. And the first year, I came home after the first year, and it was relatively small, and I couldn't shut up to my family about how cool this was, that this group of people came together with this common cause to raise money for charities, plural. The second year I came home, I was even more annoying, and it just kept compounding and involved as a team, because CenterPoint's always been part of the team, really, of Traders for Cause, as well as Zach. I got to mention Zach, right? He's been there since day one, and Greg Shabika as well. Tom Kelly, got to throw him in there. He's been there since the beginning. And if I'm missing anyone, I apologize. But this crew of people. So back to personally, I've always taken huge pride in being involved as an individual, as CenterPoint, and then as a board member for multiple years. It's been a blessing to, again, this is another team that I'm a part of that has amazing energy, amazing drive, doing work that has benefited people beyond our desks, beyond trading. And it's been an absolute blessing to have this be a part of the journey that I've been on.
What have been some of your favorite highlights during the conference, or even, regional meetups that stick out in your mind that make you really proud and put a smile on your face?
It's the human touch point, and that's what everyone loves about it, right? And watching it grow. Last year we were over 300 people. Initially we were under 100 people, so 3 times. And we've measured the growth because we as a charity want to make sure it maintains its personal touch, similar to what CenterPoint's trying to do. You're trying to scale from a charity perspective. You can help more people, raise more money, but we also value that community, that touch, that relationships that everyone has. So personally, I knew how impactful being a part of Traders for Cause was for all of us at CenterPoint. And I wanted to share that with the folks at Clear Street. So I went to the executive team at Clear Street with an idea, and they bought into it, and they committed $1 million over 5 years to Traders for a Cause. So that gave a $200,000 operational buffer to this organization that allows us to do more things, and the regional events have been a part of that. So all of that has been an amazing part of this journey, in creating more touch points for traders to expand their relationships. Hopefully, the whole point of Traders for Cause was to pay forward education about trading so that more people can be successful and therefore give more back to charity. So I think it's been an amazing success.
That's incredible. And, much credit to you, and shout out to Clear Street for, committing that $1 million to just be able to bring, Traders for a Cause to more people and to help more people out there trading, and, a number of the nonprofits that Traders for a Cause works with to help others out there. One of the questions that I had, Matt, is, what advice would you give to those who are considering going to Traders for a Cause, but just feel, uncertain that they belong there, or, might not be as profitable as they want to be. And so they feel, a little bit of imposter syndrome about going. What would you tell those individuals?
I understand and respect everyone's having to manage personal finances. The biggest reason I hear for people not to come is the finance. But what I would say is there is, I can't think of a better investment than to put yourself out there and make yourself attend one of these events. I'm not saying that as a broker. I'm not saying that as a member of Traders for a Cause. I'm saying that as a person who has watched the impact of this event, this bringing together of this community in person, the motivation, the drive, the education that people take away from it. I've there's been, I don't know how many people have attended over the years, right? Obviously, let's just say hundreds. Um, I've never heard someone say, dang, I wish I didn't do that. Never. You only hear, I cannot wait to come back here next year. And it isn't for the party. It isn't for it's partly for the good times, right? It's fun, but it is for that that communal energy that gets created in the setting that it is, and it's amazing, and it is 100% an investment everyone should make. You're missing an important tool that you could apply to this profession of trading if you don't invest in coming.
Absolutely. I have to echo that. Every time that I've gone to Traders for a Cause, it's been absolutely fulfilling. I learn a lot. I meet people that I never thought I would get to meet face to face, have conversations with them, meet a whole host of new people, learn so much about, where the money is going. And there's always so much to take away from it. It's one of the things I look forward to every single year. So you're doing an absolutely incredible job. Thank you so much for all that you do for Traders for a Cause and all that Traders for a Cause does for the world.
Yeah, you're welcome. Yeah, it goes both ways. The reward is definitely worth any work that I've put into it. And I'll mention one other thing. I think Traders for Cause has created friendships and relationships among traders that will last a lifetime, that never would have happened if you didn't show up. I know that for a fact.
On that note, sort of about people meeting one another, can you talk a little bit about the importance of networking, not just at Traders for a Cause, but in general that you've found, over the years in your profession?
IU, right, is it one example of an original community, a networking community of like-minded people trying to succeed in an incredibly hard industry. Um, there's the let's just say there's proprietary trading shops, prop shops. Those are communities. Those are environments where like-minded people come together to be successful. The online communities have, in my opinion, been part of the success of online trading as a business. I have personally benefited as a broker within the brokerage industry from the networking online communities that exist that have helped traders with their confidence and their success, because back to the win-win. It's hard. This is really hard. There's a ton more content online for people to watch, absorb, and learn from. But there's a reason that we still go to school. There's a reason that people still come together to learn, and I think it's a powerful energy that gets harnessed within networking and communities. So the growth of that, starting with for companies like IU or any others, there's several that we work with as CenterPoint, and everyone's happy for each other that this community grows, because it makes more people successful, really.
If it's okay, Matt, I'd love to go through sort of a lightning round set of questions before we end here. Is that okay?
Definitely. Hold on. Fire it up.
All right. So my first question is, what is the best piece of advice for succeeding as a broker that you've ever heard or been given?
Zero. Honestly, it's such a new industry. I don't think there was no one before that really handed it out. But the best that respect, that word respect, what a trader is going through is the best piece of advice or the best mantra to follow that has grown out of my experience with the team that I've been with.
What do you think is your greatest strength and characteristic as a broker?
Honesty.
What advice would you give to a struggling trader who's thinking about quitting?
Find a better tribe.
With all the stress that you inevitably go through in the trading business, is there anything that you do outside of that to help center yourself and de-stress and continue to be enthusiastic?
My entrepreneurial spirit was sparked by a family pet store that we owned. And my wife and I met there, and I have a small farm and a slew of animals and two wonderful children. So my family and this animal aspect is something that I lean on.
For those who would like to learn more about you or CenterPoint, how can they get in touch and learn more?
Learn more, CenterPointSecurities.com is that website. Clearstreet.io. There's a lot going on there, which is exciting. And then myself, there's not many places to learn more about me, but if you want to reach out, I'm Matt at CenterPointSecurities.com, and I welcome communication with anybody. It's part of what makes this fun.
And if anybody has questions for Matt or CenterPoint Securities or Clear Street, feel free to leave a question in the comments section below. And Matt, thank you so much for being here and taking the time to speak with me today. I really appreciate it.
Thank you, Anthony. I think you do an amazing job and have helped hundreds of people, thousands of people with the content that you're putting out. So keep it going.
We hope you enjoyed this interview on the Investors Underground podcast. We have more great interviews that we believe you might also like. So don't forget to subscribe. You'll be notified of upcoming releases the moment they become available. Thanks for watching.